Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Fandom Zone podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the Fandom Zone, ready to talk The Boys Season 2 with my wonderful co-host and post-birthday boy, DJ Nick. How you doing, Nick?
Hey, Charles. Thank you very much. I'm always super happy to be here with you and looking forward to discussing this third episode of The Boys, because as we dive further and further to this great second season.
Yes, obviously we're going to be talking more of The Boys, the series on Amazon Prime Video, adapted from the great comic book by Garth Ennis, Derek Robertson, and Ross Brown. And definitely looking forward to this as we discuss here at episode 193. We'll be discussing, take a deep breath, Over the Hill with the Swords of 1,000 Men, which is an excellent title. And is a little reference to a storyline in The Boys, which I'll get to in our little trivia section. But this was the third episode of The Boys Season 2. It was one of 3 episodes that aired on September 4th, 2020, so not too long ago. Written by Craig Rosenberg, who wrote the Season 1 episodes, The Female of the Species, and The Self-Preservation Society. And this episode was directed by Steve Boyum, who has not directed for The Boys previously, but directed episodes of the series Black Sails, the 2010 version of Human Target, which I was a big fan of, and Supernatural. So I'd say he's qualified enough to handle this series. And definitely looking to getting your thoughts on this one, Nick, because it's a very big episode. A lot of big things happen, some big character death, and a big character reveal as we get the awkward, shall we say, revelation of Stormfront's true nature.
Oh, yes, for sure. And also, I believe the title also references a Tentpole Tudors song as well.
It does.
Because I'm a big fan also of kind of punk rock and Celtic punk and that kind of music from being Flogging Molly, Dropkick Murphys, etc. So obviously, the title I went to was obviously from the Tentpole Tudors song, of course. Are you a fan of theirs?
The title Swords of 1,000 Men.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where it was inspired by, I think. But, I'm not sure. I may have heard them before, but I can't recall them offhand. But I do like bands like Dropkick Murphys and Flogging Molly. Obviously, it's kind of a Celtic rock thing, so it's kind of, in my wheelhouse a little bit.
And being Irish, how can you not? You know what I mean?
Exactly. So it's kind of music that's played on Irish festivals here in the United States. So we have one in Ohio, in the city of Dublin, Ohio.
No surprise.
That Lori and I tend to go to every year because, hey, it's pretty much just kind of right around the corner from where we live. So in another suburb of Columbus, Ohio. But it's a pretty good Irish festival. Although it happens in August, so it's incredibly hot every single year. And
of course,
doesn't quite feel like Ireland to me because not exactly Irish weather.
There is a lot of drinking going on, so at least there's that.
There is a lot of drinking going on, and Lori and I like to grab our adult beverages and head to the Celtic Rock tent and just kick back for a while. And I have a nice little plate of fish and chips.
There you go.
We've got a restaurant chain that kind of does a pub-type food. So I'm a big fan of it. It's called Old Bag of Nails here in the States.
Nice.
So it's great to get a nice little bit of draft beer to go along with fish and chips and just kick back and enjoy some Celtic rock music.
I love that. Add a pint of Guinness to that and I'm sold.
Oh, Guinness is definitely available over there. So, yeah, not a problem whatsoever. So, kind of getting back to the boys, I mentioned a little bit of trivia. Nick talked about the Swords of a Thousand Men song, but the title, Over the Hill with the Swords of a Thousand Men, is obviously majorly a reference to this very storyline I'm holding in my hot little hands.
Nice. Yeah, which our dear listeners cannot see, but I'm enjoying this beautiful cover of the comic that Charles is showing me, soon to be in my home as well. Whereas I have placed the order for the boys comics, so
excellent.
God willing, they should be coming my way soon too. So
now this is what I'm holding up in my hot little hands here, volume 11 of the trade paperback series, the original trade paperback series. They've done kind of more omnibus trade paperbacks since then.
Which is what I've ordered, yeah.
In volume form, which is a great way to do it because it's probably a little cheaper to do it that way too. Because they had 14 of these. So it got a little pricey, needless to say. But I kept buying them as they came out. I'd love to talk about this story. All I can really mention is that it was originally in the boys issue numbers 60 through 65. Mm-hmm. But there's so many major spoilers in this storyline, especially regarding Homelander, Black Noir, and Butcher, that I really shouldn't talk about it. Because it might be spoiling some big payoffs in the TV series down the road. So if you've read the comic book series, you probably know what I'm talking about. And you probably understand why I can't talk about it. But if you haven't, and you're not familiar with it, trust me, you don't want this ruined for you. So you'll forgive me if I'm a little vague and a little evasive on this one, but I think you'll appreciate me not spoiling everything for you guys.
Or folks can even, order the comic themselves so they have the surprise within their hands and it can be revealed that way if you want it to be revealed for you.
Exactly. So if you do, no problem whatsoever. You've got digital comics available, you've got trade paperbacks and what have you. So if you're inclined to kind of read ahead, so to speak, I definitely recommend it. If nothing else, to brace yourself for what's coming because there is some insane stuff coming. Trust me on this. Mm-hmm. If you thought a certain disemboweled whale was pretty rough, you ain't seen nothing yet. So strap yourselves in. You're going for a ride when you read those comics. All right. So I thought we could do 4 topics today. Mm-hmm. So topic number 1, let's talk about the boys themselves, our leads, as they go on a boat ride. And let's talk about Kenji, who has kind of been captured and is desperately trying to make his escape in this episode. And let's talk about a little side call that Butcher makes to Grace Mallory, where they discuss a certain arrangement that they have for Kenji.
Yeah.
And what that means to Butcher personally. So, Nick, as we kind of begin this episode, we have the boys on a boat called, of course, the Big Wet Dream. Get it? And Hughie's watching Billy Joel music videos on his phone. And there's still, I think, a little bit of resentment after last week's episode, which ended with Butcher punching out, cold-cocking Hughie at the end. And understandably, Hughie's a little resentful of that. So there's some little awkwardness. So I want to get your thoughts on this whole sequence of events because Butcher's plan is to get Kenji into CIA custody because he's a super terrorist, has been designated as a super terrorist. But, of course, it's a boys' mission, so it goes completely sideways rather quickly.
Of course.
So what did you make of the boys and their, shall we say, interesting attempt to get Kenji into CIA custody?
Well, first off, I'm glad that we got the kind of payoff from that famous punch that Butcher, gave to Hughie. And the fact that obviously he's there kind of sulking about it. And it seems like, and of course, we will see this as the series unfolds, that his go-to almost when it comes to almost comfort is Billy Joel. And even in this case, he's kind of trying to almost, get his comfort fix in by watching a Billy Joel video. And he will, of course, reference this Second Wind video quite a bit throughout this episode. In fact, he even leaves Starlight that message that you're my second wind and all this kind of thing. Also, I would say, go ahead.
I was just going to say a rather embarrassing phone message.
Yes, it was very cheesy. But you know what? Like, had it been like in the 90s or something, everybody would have been like, oh, that's so cute. You know, it's very 90s cheese, if you will. But yeah, also I have to say props to Billy Butcher for wearing that Hawaiian shirt. I mean, it would look like Magnum PI all over again. That's why I kind of got that kind of vibe of Magnum PI. But yeah, and I like that they did kind of discuss that whole thing. Is like, sorry if I punched you, man, you know, and all this kind of thing. And Hughie, obviously, what does he do? He socks him right back, and he actually wants to do much more damage to him. You know, had Mother's Milk not restrained him.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, Mother's Milk had to kind of come between them and separate them, and Mother's Milk basically told Butcher to leave while he calmed Hughie down. So again, Mother's Milk being the peacemaker once again in the group.
He's actually sort of being the adult in this kind of playground of very sort of misbehaved children.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
But yeah, and also of course we get to see Frenchie trying to get to know Kenji better, almost like he did with Kimiko. So maybe he's thinking that method might help. Because I think Frenchie always wants to see the good in people. And I think he believes everybody is good. You have to kind of get that side out. And in fact, he's offering him apparently terrible chips, which I don't know if it's a great bargaining tool. Like, oh, these chips are terrible. Are you hungry?
Not exactly a salesman, is he?
Exactly. It's like, what are you trying to say? Oh, these are like the best chips in America or something like that. But no. But yeah, and I think Kenji I don't think, you know, at least in this episode, you know, not to, you know, get too ahead of ourselves, but I don't think he's all evil. He just, once again, we talk about direction in the previous episode. It's all about direction. And I think Kenji just needs to be steered in the right direction. You see, he's kind of in the middle here, because after having talked to Frenchie, after having talked to Kimiko, I think he sees that possibly these guys aren't all bad, or rather Americans aren't all bad. At least when it comes to Frenchie, at least, and Mother's Milk, because we know that Butcher, if he has to kill him, he'll kill him. He's not prepared to kind of compromise, because to him, as we said, it's all about Becca. As long as he gets Becca, he's happy to kill Kenji, if needs be. And he even says about Kimiko, she says, if she gets in the way, I'll fix her too. So like, wow, that's pretty cold, man.
Yeah, that's when he kind of mentions that when he's talking with Grace Mallory, talking about their arrangement that if Butcher brings in Kenji, then I guess Grace will do what she can to help Butcher get Becca back. So this is obviously in Butcher's self-interest, and he's more than determined, like, you know, he's perfectly happy to sacrifice Kenji. He doesn't care one whit about Kenji, especially since he's a superpowered person. Yeah. But unfortunately, yeah, when he's talking with Grace, and you mentioned how he says, look, you know, if Kimiko steps out of line, you know, she'll be neutralized. And Frenchie overhears this.
That's right.
Which just upsets him as well. So everybody's really on edge. And Butcher's certainly not making things any easier since his return.
Oh no, that's the whole thing, and you also mentioned about the fact of Frenchie possibly being enamored of Kimiko.
Yes,
and I think it shows even more so in this episode because he actually asks Kenji to teach him sign language. Because he's so desperate to communicate with her.
Well, and it's their special sign language because it's not a standard sign language that Frenchie could learn on his own. It's something that Kimiko and Kenji came up with.
Correct. Yeah.
So basically Kenji is apart from Kimiko, is the only other person that could teach him this.
Yeah. And of course he is looking for any way possible to get closer to her, I think. And and once again, I so love the character of Kimiko. She is really, she really grows on you. And I think even here you see how sympathetic and how loving she is to her brother. And she's like, you know, I'll love you no matter what. And she really is desperate to make this work. And it really kind of tore at my heartstrings because she's such a beautiful character. I think she's one of the better people in this whole series, to be honest.
Yes. Yeah. She's Karen Fukuhara. I mean, I don't think enough gets said about her because everybody's so focused on Butcher and Hughie and, you know, just Homelander and whatnot. But so Kimiko, Karen Fukuhara's Kimiko tends to get overlooked But I think, this storyline helped to bring another side of her to viewers. And as a result, I think it makes her more sympathetic because, especially as we find out toward the end of the episode, when she loses her brother, that it makes her, I think, more sympathetic and it gives her a purpose, revenge for her dead brother. And they had a chance, even with her brother being, as we talked about, him being so politically misguided and kind of almost brainwashed by that group that destroyed their village. That with their ideology, that they had a chance to kind of reconcile and maybe have a life going forward, but that gets taken away, and so you feel something for Kimiko. You feel you feel heartbroken because everything she went through and everything she was so desperate to get her brother back, and now after finally getting him back, she loses him, and we'll have to see where she goes going forward.
Yeah, and in that shot at the end where the camera keeps focusing more and more on her eyes, that expression is so haunting. And I love just the fact that the camera slowly but surely moves closer and closer to her facial expressions. It kind of reminded me a little bit of either something that you would see in a Sergio Leone film, for example, or even Tarantino for that matter, because that kind of angry feel, because you can see and once again, props to Karen Fukuhara for that expression.
Yeah, it's very much like Uma Thurman in Kill Bill. I think that's a great comparison. That kind of like, you have completely messed up because now I'm declaring, a vendetta on you, to use, or, just a jihad or just this, just a death vow, if you will. For revenge.
War has been officially declared.
And that's one of the things like, Karen Fukuhara has pretty intense eyes when she wants to. I know, like as I'm holding up my Funko of Karen Fukuhara as Katana in Suicide Squad.
Love it.
One of my favorite characters. And she was, she had that intensity there in that film as well. So it's great. I was completely sold when they announced her casting originally because I knew after watching her as Katana, I knew she could pull this off. And sure enough, she's completely embracing the character and really making her a memorable member of the team.
And plus, she doesn't get to talk, obviously. So it shows off how much of an even great actress she is, because there she's just relying on her facial expressions and her gestures.
Yeah.
While everybody, gets this dialogue, and such, she doesn't get anything because obviously she gets subtitles, and that's the extent of it. But I think it's almost like the contrast of, it's a very loud world, the one of the boys, and she's almost the quiet one. So it's almost that kind of contrast of,
right.
It's something that it's hard to put into words, but I think you understand what I mean. And I think the listeners got what I mean by this kind of contrast of this. Everybody's shouting at each other. She doesn't. She's like very sort of, I love that kind of contrast.
And I think that makes her the most dangerous member as a result.
Yeah.
Because she's the one you're going to overlook. Because she's not the one, trying to be quippy or loud or boisterous. She's not the one trying to get your attention. And as a result of you not paying attention to her, that's when, you'll never see her coming.
That's right.
Next
moment you've been gutted like a fish.
Exactly. Or disemboweled like a whale, if you will. See what I did there? So
that's why I love podcasting with this gentleman, dear listeners, because it's like the perfect hockey duo. I set him up, and he puts him in the net.
I know. I try my best. Sometimes sometimes they don't always work, but I give it my best shot. If nothing else, Kimiko brings new meaning to the term silent but deadly. So.
Love it. But yeah, so it's like you said, it's an accident waiting to happen, and it's a great situation. And of course, we get the return of the Deep, but we will get to that, of course.
Yeah, we have to talk about the Deep this time. We kind of set him off to the side last episode, but there's a certain segment that we need to talk about. We have to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So Kenji, with Frenchie trying to reach out and trying to get Kenji to teach him sign language. He brings him the bag of chips that apparently are not great, and he brings him a can of soda. And Kenji is able to kind of telekinetically move the can a little bit closer to him so that he can use that to cut his bonds, his rope bonds. And so eventually he gets out. And just when the team is heading toward the CIA, this kind of their intended location, where there's kind of like a CIA
like a compound or
refuge.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's like on a small island or whatever, and it's like a little base where essentially they can hole up until the CIA arrives to bring Kenji into custody, presumably. But before that happens, they get spotted by a helicopter, a police helicopter, and Kenji brings that helicopter down, and Hughie is just freaking out at this moment. He's just like, "Oh my God, what has happened?" Now there's more innocence that I'm partially responsible for dying. Yeah. And the whole thing goes sideways and then becomes this big chase with everyone trying to make it to the CIA base before they can get captured. So were you at all surprised when things went sideways, as they often do on this show, when it comes to the boys' plans?
To be honest, it did not surprise me because that, and look, Butcher says he's a great leader, but he seems to kind of almost be bad mojo for the team because, he's like, granted, he's actually getting prepared for something to go sideways because in the middle of all this, of course, there's been the announcement on the news about Compound V, and everybody's kind of celebrating that is now a public thing. And so obviously, Frenchie actually kisses Hughie and Mosmilk hugs him. And Butcher's the guy who kind of brings everybody down saying, guys, it's not the moment to celebrate. This could go sideways at any moment. So he kind of jinxed it there a little bit because shortly after is when the helicopter shows up.
Well, yeah, granted, he was proven right. But, yeah, Butcher is more of the a bit of a cynic and more the pragmatic realist in this regard.
It's kind of like we've won the battle, we haven't won the war, we have to carry on here.
Yeah, exactly. And so since you brought up that moment where everybody's celebrating over the Compound V story getting out. Now, obviously I want to talk about that from the Seven's perspective later, but from the boys' perspective, especially Hughie's, this is a very big deal because this is essentially Hughie's first big win. Something he was, he and Starlight were responsible for. And so it's essentially Hughie proving his worth at long last to the team. And he, to the point where, yes, Butcher kind of tries to step all over the celebrations, but even Butcher can't deny what just happened.
Exactly.
So what did
he
you
downplays it.
Yeah, so do you think it was just, do you think Butcher was trying to step on his moment? Or do you think that he was, or do you think that there was something else going on there?
You know what? At this point in the game, it's hard to say, obviously to not give too much away. But the thing is, I think he was just mainly like almost an army general. He's kind of trying to downplay it, saying, yeah, all fine and dandy, good job, kid, etc. But we haven't stormed the beach yet and won the beachfront yet.
Yes.
Or established a beachhead, if you will, or to use that kind of comparison. So I don't think he's kind of like, trying to stumble. He's just kind of trying to bring everybody back to reality. Also because maybe, like you said, he's pragmatic and he maybe is afraid that, because he's seen happy moments go completely sideways before.
Right.
So that's why I think he's trying to, he could have done it a little bit more gently, if you will, at least acknowledged Hughie a little bit, but we know that's not Butcher's way. So
no, essentially when it comes to tact, Butcher is slightly lacking in this regard. His idea of tact is to take a sledgehammer out and essentially smash something, as opposed to just gently address something. So
granted, he's got other things on his mind. That's the thing. To him, once again, Becca, if to him, is winning the war. To him, this is like we've won a small battle. It's like, in a playoff run, you've won game one, you can't start celebrating now because you haven't moved on to the next round just yet. Yeah. So he sees it as, obviously, Butcher is playing the long game. So that's why he's like, great job, we have to move on.
Yeah. And as far as Butch is concerned, hey, that's great that you did this, but I still don't have my wife yet. So let's get back to that. So it's essentially...
So it maybe is a little bit selfish on his part.
Yeah, I'd say so. That even with this great accomplishment of getting that story out there to the public, that Butcher is not impressed. Or, he's... As far as he's concerned, like you said, the war hasn't been won. He doesn't have his wife back yet. And... So as far as he's concerned, it's just another thing, another day, and it may help them down the line, but for right now, as far as he's concerned, it's not a win, not yet. Yeah. So.
And I don't know about you, but would you say this is maybe poor leadership on his part of not acknowledging what Hughie has done? Because in my eyes, if you're a good leader, you acknowledge when your team is successful.
Yeah.
I think
you want to have positive.
It keeps everybody happy.
Yeah. You want to give positive reinforcement to your team members, and especially when they do something that's helpful to your cause. But again, I think it's Butcher's personal agenda that's coming between him and his team. He's so self-absorbed and looking out for himself and what he wants, that he's not focusing on the other team members, which is why I think Mother's Milk is a much better team leader than Butcher.
Agreed.
Because Mother's Milk gives him a compliment. He's very supportive. He tries to calm him down when Hughie takes a swing at Butcher, and he's the team leader the team needs, but unfortunately, Butcher's, in the driver's seat, and he's not going to give that up anytime soon.
Yeah, it's two very different styles of leadership, because I would say Butcher's is almost dictatorial, to where he has a plan, he has to accomplish that, whereas Mother's Milk might be more of an accomplished leader, if you will, as in who will recognize people doing a good job. But sort of sum this up, basically, I think Butcher sees like a path between him and Becca, and he's like, what Hughie's done, how does this get me closer to Becca? It doesn't, so I'm not gonna acknowledge it.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously it keeps that relationship very strained between him and Hughie as a result.
Exactly.
And also keeps the team, I think, from becoming a cohesive unit.
That's the thing. If you want to also create, have a coalesced and team, you have to recognize when your team members do something good.
Right.
I mean, that's lead.
It's kind of leadership 101. Yes. Yeah. All right. Anything else about this topic before we move on?
I mean, I just think, obviously, once again, this sows the seeds for things to come as relationship-wise within the team, and how it could possibly create a schism or a rift within the team itself going forward.
Yeah, and again, I talked about this a little bit last week, but you need to keep an eye on Butcher and Hughie and their relationship. And this is just another chapter in that saga. And another important thing to kind of keep in perspective between these two. These two, these little moments here and there should eventually build to a much bigger confrontation between the two, shall we say. All right. I'll just leave it there. All right. Topic number 2. Let's talk about Homelander, who is trying to be his best superhero dad self. And let's talk about Ryan, and let's talk about Becca, Butcher's wife. And so Homelander decides to show up for breakfast and is trying once again to bond with his son Ryan. And with disastrous results in this case, shall we say.
Oh, yes.
So obviously, Becca's not thrilled about this. Becca's very reluctant to leave Ryan, her son, with Homelander, but obviously she has zero power to stop him. And what Homelander wants, Homelander gets. And as a result, Ryan ends up in this episode getting injured as a result.
Yeah.
So what did you make of Homelander's latest attempt to bond with his son?
Now, this is probably going to be a running theme on this review we do of this season, Charles, but can't they give Homelander orange juice to drink? I'm just asking.
Oh, you mean as opposed to milk?
Yes. In fact, when they were at the breakfast table, I was like, please don't have a shot of Homelander drinking milk. Please don't. And there he is, savoring it.
Nice, cool glass of milk.
Because obviously you know what they're doing there. But
yes. He's not. He's a milk guy. He's not a juice guy, as we find out. It's not his thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He's very much into milk.
I would imagine he loved pouring milk on his breakfast cereal when he was a kid. But so now I've ruined cereal for you.
It's all good. It's all good. But outside of that, I had a feeling we knew that the Homelander-Ryan relationship was a disaster waiting to happen. Because we actually discussed this in the previous episode, that he was trying too hard. And rather than having the desired effect, it was actually pushing Ryan further and further away from him. And this was probably predictable. Knowing Homelander, what's he going to do to get his kid to manifest his powers? Chuck him off the roof, of course, no biggie. It's kind of boom, down you go. But it doesn't surprise me.
And poor Ryan, of course, is a victim of gravity, yes.
Yeah, but we do, however, get the reveal that he actually does have latent superpowers, or actually does possess them, because we see the red eyes flash up and everything else. So it's like, at least he'll be okay because he's inherited his dad's powers.
But it was a very key moment, because Homelander was insistent that Ryan had powers, and Ryan is just like, look, I don't have powers. I've never displayed any signs of them. Becca is like, look, he doesn't have powers, okay? Trust me on this. I would have noticed. But Homelander has a feeling. He's like, he's my son, so therefore he's got to have powers, and all I have to do is just kind of coax them out. And so he takes Ryan to jump off the side of the house. Assuring him, yes, you can fly. You're my son. Trust me, you can fly. You can do this. And Ryan, being a somewhat very timid boy, is very reluctant to do this. He doesn't want to do it. So what does Homelander do? Just shoves him right off.
Exactly.
And he falls to the ground. And, it's kind of a disappointing moment, obviously, for Homelander. A very terrifying moment for Becca because, hey, her son is now lying injured on the ground. And Homelander isn't exactly trying to comfort him in this regard. So she rushes out.
No, he's kind of just looking up at the sky going, oh, well.
Like, we'll try something else. This will happen. Trust me. Just give it a little time, I guess. So Homelander instead gets upset with Becca and blames her for not raising Ryan right, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And because the first thing, when he got there, he's annoyed that they were speaking Spanish at breakfast.
Yeah.
And
he thought it was like, so hoity-toity kind of things, like this stuff that girls do, not boys, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's what he sees it as, because he seems like she's making him too effeminate in his eyes. It's not kind of giving him that testosterone-injected kind of lifestyle,
Well, and it shows how Homelander views a family unit, that he essentially sees Becca turning Ryan into a mama's boy and making him, a very timid, afraid young man. So, Homelander is, obviously because he has a much more sociopathic view, is more than willing to take control and and sees Becca as a failure and look, okay, you're not raising the kid right. I'm going to raise him right. And so he grabs, Becca by the wrist. And at this point, he gets very rough with Becca. And that triggers something in Ryan. Ryan's, meanwhile, is just watching all of this in horror because now he sees his father being cruel to his mother, the only safety net that he's known. And so what happens, this is what triggers that flash of power, those glowing red eyes. And Homelander is ecstatic by this.
Yeah.
But
because Ryan shoves him and knocks him over and stuff, and he's like, kind of success.
Yeah, and Becca's just horrified. And Ryan obviously is just confused and terrified as well by all this because he never knew that he could do that. All he wanted was Homelander to get away from his mother. Yeah. So a pretty big moment.
And now he's furious with Homelander because he's like, stay away from us. I never want to see you again. And obviously uses even stronger language, which we can't use on this particular podcast. But he basically tells him to go fly a kite, to be clean.
Basically to F off. Yes, we can do.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. So you just have to be creative around it a little bit. But he just wants Homelander to leave them alone. And that's kind of where we leave them at this particular moment for now.
And Homelander is actually seemingly hurt by this.
Yeah, he's not sure what to do, so I think he actually just leaves at that point.
He's flies off because he doesn't know how to react to that situation because nobody's kind of ever told him no or go away or anything like that. So I think he just doesn't know how to react. He's like, I'm not even going to try and see where this goes. I'm out of here.
Yeah, well, I think it's a case, he wasn't going to listen to Becca, who told him to leave. But then when Ryan did it, Ryan's saying his own son is telling him to leave. At this point, he's just like, okay, I got to regroup on this one. I'll be back later. And so he flies off, my guess. So he just he tried to, I guess, cut his losses. So it's probably one of the more smarter things that he did at that particular moment.
Yeah, that's true. And now you wonder at this point what's going to happen next time Homelander shows up at the house.
And also what's going to happen with Ryan now that he knows that he has superpowers just like his father. Yeah, so to be continued. We'll see. So stay tuned, viewers. All right. Anything else before we move on?
Well, I mean, this is one of the many snubs that Homelander will receive during the course of this episode, and we will get to the other ones.
Oh,
but
yes.
I think it just, starts mounting for him And he's not going to be a happy Homelander by the end of this episode, because it seems like he's being slowly but surely ousted from his position.
Yeah, it's essentially, Homelander is facing some threats on several sides here. And he's not one, we talked, like you mentioned, that he doesn't like being told no. And suddenly everyone around him is telling him no. And as a result, Homelander is not taking that very well. And again, which kind of plays into his own insecurities and his psychosis. And is going to make for some really bad stuff coming up. So
well, and the problem is, it's like we've also mentioned this. You touched up on this, Charles. He's very much an overgrown. He's a child in a man's body. The problem is, when he throws a tantrum, it will be disastrous, and it's leading up to him building up to throwing a tantrum.
Yeah, he tries to present himself as a Superman, but what he is a Superman child.
Very well said.
So we'll see what happens. All right, topic number 3. We kind of teased this already. We have to talk about it. The Deep, getting a little spotlight here on the Fandom Zone. And, hey, Lucy the Whale. So,
rest in peace, Lucy the Whale.
Rest in peace. You know,
that's right.
I'm going to pour one out for my whale here. Yes. Pour one out for my homie. So the Deep, who... As we kind of catch up with him, with his church, that he's still kind of trying to, he's still kind of coming off of kind of his little insight with his own gills last episode. And he's trying to, as in the process of him kind of coming down off of that psychedelic tea that he drank, and just the kind of breakthrough that he had last episode. He sees the story about the Compound V come out, and he learns that, well, hey, I wasn't just born this way. Apparently, I was made because of Compound V. So Compound V made me like this. And he has a hard time processing that. So what did you make of that moment?
Well, I mean, we see that this revelation hits quite a few of the soups kind of hard. He's one of them, and his reaction, I think, it just really turns him around on this whole. He's like, I got this whole thing wrong in that it wasn't a gift. It's almost like a curse, because he didn't ask for that to be done to him. Had it been a miracle of nature, obviously he was okay with that. He was already starting to embrace it. Yeah. But now he has to. It's like that's all been broken down, and he has to embrace that he was a lab experiment, which must definitely not be fun. And I think that may also kind of draw him more into the whole spiritual side of course, the cult that he is in, and we actually see that he's learned some of that. He actually is quoting them when he sees the Seven. So they've definitely rubbed off on him. Yeah. And I think he's also been able to almost kind of get out his feelings within the group, saying, I was an experiment. I wasn't born this way. And it hits him pretty hard. And he thinks to himself now, kind of, where do I go next? And we then, of course, find out that he's able to go. There's an opportunity for him to get back into the Seven's good graces, or so he thinks.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point, because this revelation with Compound V, he's already been doubting himself and second-guessing himself and reevaluating his life, so that when the Compound V revelation comes out, it's a major blow. And as a result of him doubting himself and everything that he knew, it does open the gate more for the church, because now there's this self-doubt, and the church is more than happy to step in and fill that void. So he's almost like, okay, well, so far these guys aren't lying to me, so I need something right now to latch on to, and what he latches on is the church. And like you said, he starts quoting their beliefs to the Seven. Yeah. there's a, we talked about how, like when he goes to, I guess we should probably talk about this first, that the Deep is the one who shows up to try to stop Butcher and the boys from reaching that CIA base. And so
he's hoping this will be his ticket back into the Seven.
Exactly. So this is his big moment. So he's got sharks, kind of attacking the boat, and then the boys and Kenji and the others have to get into this little kind of a smaller speedboat that gets lowered in, and so they go making this like mad dash for the island, and so they're racing toward the island to try to beat getting captured, and then the Deep shows up, and he's got a whale there. So it's like, and he's standing all on top of the whale, just like Aquaman would. Total Aquaman move, and so in a moment that is pure the boys, Butcher guns the engine and of the boat, and just ramming speed and plows right into the whale, right through the whale. It's like, okay, you're
what
gonna
else, of course.
Yeah, so it's like, and so obviously, the Deep gets thrown, the whale just gets practically half destroyed, and the boys kind of end up in the whale's carcass as a result of this crash. So what did you make of that rather insane moment? Were you just just like blown away by the craziness of what you just watched?
Well, at first, seeing obviously that classic shark fin, I thought to myself, this could have been a nice little tribute to Jaws. Mm-hmm. Maybe they wanted to somewhat tribute Jaws. I don't know. I mean, granted, there have been tons and tons of shark movies.
They're going to need a bigger boat.
But, that's right. Nice.
Thank you.
But yeah. I mean, it's great to know that you're also a fellow Jaws fan, Charles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Spielberg, man, you gotta watch Jaws.
Exactly. We're talking the Spielberg man here. But that said, I expected something weird to happen. I mean, I was kind of like, are they going to reach the shore or not? What's going to happen? Is a shark going to jump out? Because I was hoping for that kind of Jaws moment, which we didn't get. But when they plowed through the whale, I was like, oh man, seriously, and because. I obviously I felt really bad for the whale because obviously she's a casualty in this craziness.
She's an innocent,
yeah, that's right. It gets caught in the crossfire, and it was obviously pure craziness, but it also kind of gives, I think, it puts Hughie over the edge because here he's completely shattered. Because actually just seeing him sitting in the kind of the bowels of the whale, be it a la Jonah or a la Pinocchio, take your pick.
Yeah,
and he's just like kind of totally shocked. He's not even, breathing when he's just like, looks like he's totally shattered. And you're like, yeah, this is the tipping point for Hughie. Cause he actually wants to stay there. I'm like, you can probably, at least exit the whale because that thing must stink like there's no tomorrow because you're inside the bowels of this thing. Right next to, I believe, its heart. So it's like, it mustn't be a particularly pleasant odor in there.
No, this is. I think
he's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it's just everything has culminated. All the stress that Hughie's been feeling, and just the idea that okay, they've ended up in the bowels of this poor whale, and Hughie at that moment just completely checks out. He's just like. They try to bring him out, and he's like, no, I'm gonna get my second wind. So it's another reference to the Billy Joel
song,
to the song "You're Only Human, Second Wind." But that he's like, look, I think I'm good here, and even when so Mother's Milk, and I thought was again showing how much better he is at being a team leader than Butcher.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't see Butcher doing this. Goes in and...
In fact, he's like, I'm done. Kind of thing.
So Mother's Milk goes in and sits by Hughie in the carcass. and trying to
How poetic.
right, and they kind of have this very surreal bonding moment there, and essentially Mother's Milk tries to talk to Hughie and bring him out because hey, they're still being pursued. So he finally gets him out, and they head for the base. But poor Deep, getting back to the Deep is just destroyed at this point. At this chaotic moment of events, the boys get out of the carcass just in time before the Seven show up. And the Deep is there, and he's just cradling poor Lucy the whale, and he's just like so upset by this because he feels what the whale was feeling and whatnot, and Homelander shows up, and the Deep kind of gets a little distracted. He's like, "Oh, hey guys," trying to "Hey, I tried, I tried to stop those guys for you, and so you gonna let me back on the team or what?" And Homelander still wants nothing to do with the Deep. He looks him over and he's like, "Look, you need to cover your chest because your vest got ripped open and those hideous gills of yours are sticking out." So right away, Homelander is preying on the Deep's insecurities about his appearance, and so all that horrible self-loathing that the Deep feels about his gills and his appearance comes flooding right back as a result.
Yeah, because that's all Homelander has for him. Because then at a certain point when they're about to go into the tunnels,
yes,
the Deep's like, "Okay, let's go and get them, guys," and Homelander's like, "Not you." Yeah. And he's kind of rallying everybody.
Yeah.
And
you, not you. Yeah.
Yeah, literally, kid in the school in the schoolyard. But
yes.
it's awful. And then of course, added to that, the Deep gets yelled at by Starfire, of course, and he gets that whole talk of you're such a mistreater of women, you're such a misogynist, and everything else. And Starlight, pardon me, yes.
Yeah.
And
so many stars, superheroes, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Starman, Stargirl, yeah, exactly.
There's too many. And and basically Starlight gives him the whole talk, which I'm sure she's been wanting to give him for a while.
Yeah.
And the Deep doesn't exactly word his arguments the best way possible, so he's not able to kind of talk himself out of it.
Stormfront shuts him down too.
Yeah. On top of this, he's being yelled at as well when he's trying to turn a new leaf
by women who he's had a major problem with because of as we found out, that all comes back to that self-loathing that he feels.
Yeah.
So he gets completely shut down once again, and just not a
not a great moment.
No, just another wah, wah moment by the Deep. So I got to do this. Sorry, Deep fans, but not today. All right.
No, so it's just one humiliation after the other. Because after he's basically been yelled at by Starlight and Stormfront or been shut down, that's when, Homelander kind of puts the cherry on the cake saying, "Your gill is showing. That's disgusting." And then he walks off.
Yeah. So because, hey, the Homelander's an a-hole. And and if you're looking for, positive reinforcement from Homelander, you're talking to the wrong guy. So
forget sympathy.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. All right. Topic number 4. Since we're on the subject of the Seven, segues rather perfectly. So let's talk about the Seven. And let's also talk about Stan Edgar. And essentially what we have is the final act of this episode where the Seven confront some members of the boys in the tunnels, and especially there's a very quick reunion between Starlight and Hughie, but Homelander shows up and makes it a very awkward reunion as Homelander demands of Starlight to prove her loyalty by killing Hughie. So that's probably going to affect their relationship a little bit, I'm guessing. So,
just a tad.
Just a tad. So what did you make of that?
I was actually shocked at first that Starlight was actually getting ready to almost incinerate him, but I think because she was kind of gearing up her powers, but knowing Starlight, should we say, my better judgment was she's probably going to turn around and focus it on Homelander. I had that feeling, but it's hard to say at this point.
So you had no doubt that Starlight was not going to kill Hughie.
I mean, because she was also trying to procrastinate as much as possible to help them get away, because I think she actually went after the Deep to buy the boys some time, because, she kind of she heard that there was a group of people. Yeah. And my thought is, I'll get into the Deep to kind of buy some time so they can get away and, kind of focus everybody's attention on the Deep. So I think she was actually trying to buy them some time with that argument. And then, granted that when she does meet Hughie, she does kind of zap him at one point. So, what's that about? Is she trying to hide him? Is she trying to do something? I don't know. Yeah. But I don't think.
But do you think it was more for show, or was she a little frustrated with him?
I think she was trying to keep up appearances, to be honest, because Starlight, up until this point, is not a killer. Or rather, she won't kill. She'll either maybe kill in self-defense or she'll kill really bad people.
Yeah.
So I don't see her incinerating Hughie. I think had push come to shove and Butcher not brought out Kenji and had, Homelander temporarily buried, I think she might have just turned around and tried to blast Homelander. That's my theory. Well, what did you think, Charles? I think she would have gone ahead with that.
I think you bring up some great points that Starlight, I wasn't too concerned, but it did look like, she was at least going to try to make it look good.
Yeah.
And I had to take into account that, well, hey, she's still trying to be undercover with the Seven. So
yeah, she's a double agent.
So if she's a double agent, she's got to play the part. And as a result, she probably would have knocked Hughie around a little bit, but wouldn't have intended to kill him, but then until Homelander tried to insist, and then as you were talking about her power building up, the question would have been, well, what would she have done had Homelander pressed that point further, had the opportunity to press it further, but then things get distracted, and Butcher comes out and distracts Homelander and kind of makes that little that very awkward moment go away.
Yeah, because then Kenji is interestingly uses his powers to temporarily, as I said, incapacitate Homelander, because we know that's not going to kill him. Yes. And then Kenji actually tries to escape, apparently, because he just sort of jumps out into the hole that he has created.
Yes.
And then
he kind of brings down the roof, and there's cars and cement or whatever. That he brings that on top, and then that creates a hole, like you said, and he just scampers up the top and to make his escape. But Kimiko, of course, runs after him and begs him to stop, and then things take a very dark turn because Stormfront steps forward into this. And they kind of they essentially come after going through all these tunnels, and they come out, and they're at this apartment complex. And Stormfront confronts them, blasts them through the walls of this apartment complex. And in the process, Stormfront completely reveals who the horrible person that she is, the horrible person that we kind of figured she was because, hey, she has the name Stormfront, right? If you're at all familiar.
That usually doesn't bode well.
No, there's kind of like a little Nazi association with Stormfront, the name Stormfront. So, if for anybody paying attention. And so you knew it wasn't going to go well. And sure enough, Stormfront is just intentionally killing African Americans left and right. Black people just blasting them away, just happened to be caught in her path. And so
Yeah.
people that didn't need to die, she's using the opportunity to just kill because, hey, she's a super racist.
That's right. Yeah, here it's completely revealed, and then of course, I was just like, I was sickened by it, to be honest, because I'm like,
Well, you should have been.
It's
horrible.
You can't, you know what? And you can't wait. You say, I really hope something bad happens to you, because really, you're just like,
Yeah.
But it's such a 180, from what we had seen, because she seems to have no filter when it comes to talking and stuff, and she seems almost kind of fun in that sense. So maybe she's not as bad as we think. I mean, even, to go back and just rewind a little bit, when they're discussing the storyboard for the 7 film, which is in the making, we did tearing that apart.
We did kind of skip over that, but
she's tearing that apart, and I love that it's obviously a parody and a lampooning of how. Yeah, exactly, and how superhero movies are made. Because obviously Hans Zimmer is brought in, because obviously Hans Zimmer is pretty much everywhere when it comes to the DC universe, at least.
Well, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, Dawn of the Seven. Yeah, it seems pretty apparent what they're making fun of here.
Yeah, I know, but I mean,
talking about how the screenwriter is not doesn't write women well.
Looking at you, Zack Snyder.
Yeah, exactly. Chris Terrio, yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And then, of course, like I said, Hans Zimmer, who I actually love. He's a wonderful composer. I actually watched his concert live in Prague that they had on Netflix, which they've taken off, which is a beautiful, beautiful concert. But that aside, I love that. And then, she's tearing it all apart, saying, you're writing these kind of Hitchcock women, or you're writing these women that are almost bimbos. You don't know how to write women. So it was like, I love that. That made me actually chuckle. That was kind of fun.
Yeah.
But here, you're like, I have no love for this person.
Yeah, it's pretty much she's fully exposed at this point as far as the horrible person that she is. And
it's
and delighting in her cruelty and her just viciousness and the fact that just this bigotry and hate just comes oozing out of her at this moment.
Uber Nazi, really, and then the fact when she makes a comment to Kenji is, "Open your eyes, because I love to see the life leaving your eyes," kind of thing, which was just like. Ooh, I mean, it was bad, man.
Well, she called him an effing yellow bastard in the process, and she, and at that moment, Stormfront breaks his neck as Kimiko watches helplessly from the sidelines
after having happily ripped his hands off.
Yeah, just if he needs his hands to use his powers, well, snap. Well, guess you don't need those anymore. So, threat solved.
Charles, is it bad that when she called him an effing yellow bastard, I went to Frank Miller's Sin City?
I could see why you did that, yes.
Because we're in the comic book realm.
Yes.
And I was like... that's why, obviously, I know it was a racial epithet, obviously, a racist epithet, but... Obviously, because I love Sin City.
That's where your brain went. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I suppose I was like, yes, of course it's racist, but at the same time, the little bubble came out of my head, kind of like in comics, like, oh, and Sin City started playing in my mind. So there you go.
So the thought balloon coming out of Nick's brain was, like all of a sudden he starts playing Sin City by Robert Rodriguez. Yeah, that's fun.
And I have not watched that in way too long. That's probably why.
Well, we'll have to do something about that. All right. So poor Kimiko watches her brother die, but then she has to run because, hey, Homelander's back, and she's hopelessly outnumbered.
Yeah. So,
and Homelander is not happy with Stormfront because, hey, he wanted to stop the super terrorist because, hey, he's Homelander. He's the guy in charge, right? And Stormfront shoots back, well, you snooze, you lose, Gramps.
That did not sit well with Homelander.
No, and right there, just daggers going from Homelander to Stormfront because just you could see the rage building inside him, and it's all he can do to keep from trying to snap her neck in the process.
Not to mention, right after we get that press conference, and she's lauded as the great new superhero who stopped the terrorists and everything else.
Yep.
She's, obviously playing to the camera completely, and in the back, and right behind her, we see Homelander kind of, like you said, shooting daggers at her, and he's like, "I don't like you one bit," if I. So
well,
it was pretty rough.
And Stan Edgar, the head of Vought, is more than happy to do that because earlier in the episode, while Stan Edgar was talking to the Seven or whatever, that Homelander brings up the point that, hey, my contract's almost up, and I'm not sure if I want to renew it, and I could take my talents elsewhere. We don't really need Vought. And he kind of gets a little bit of a rude awakening from Stan Edgar.
Yeah, not to mention he tries to undermine Edgar's authority when Edgar discusses the breach, or should we say the press leak of a Compound V, right. And Homelander's like, "We're the superheroes, you're the normal guy, we're gonna handle it. We don't need you."
Yeah.
And that's one of the few times that Stormfront is actually impressed with Homelander. That's one of the few moments before it then all goes,
sideways
to hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So consequently, Stan Edgar is more than happy to hey, Homelander he wants to be acting like that. Well, I'll just make Stormfront the face of the Seven and put her in the spotlight. Right.
And the way and the fact that everybody's so worried at Vought, saying, we're going to risk going bankrupt, our shares are dropping. Stan Edgar is just smiling to himself all the way through. He doesn't seem in the least bit worried. He hasn't even made a public statement yet. And he then makes one way later on just saying, "Oh, we had no idea. We deny all kind of, any sort of culpability," and this kind of thing. It's like the guy knows how to play to the media for sure. And that's probably why it seems like nothing phases him. He's never worried.
Yeah, he's Giancarlo Esposito, the guy who plays Stan Edgar. I got to know him, first from watching Breaking Bad, where he played a character named Gus Fring. And essentially,
same here, yeah.
Esposito brings a lot of Gus Fring to Stan Edgar. That very eerily calm, calculating guy in charge. The guy running.
And what a
running the big organization. And so Giancarlo Esposito is just, he's so good at being just this, at being the guy who, very quietly authoritative and very intimidating character. And even when, hey, Stan Edgar is just this normal human, right? He's not at all fazed or intimidated by somebody like Homelander, even though he really should be.
Yeah, he just plays it so cool. That's, I think, it makes you wonder, what does he have over the Seven that allows him to have this position of power? Because it's evidently, you have to think that he's either completely, just this gambling here, as it were, and just pretending that he has something, but there has to be, he has to have something over them. And secondly, the man has such a beautiful voice.
Doesn't he?
Yeah.
I wish I had that voice. Yes.
Oh, you and me both. He just has that sort of, I don't know, those tones and stuff. And I know he's actually done quite a bit of voice work as well, and you can tell because it's just beautiful, beautiful voice. And, you mentioned Breaking Bad. I'd also mentioned Once Upon a Time, where he's the spirit of the enchanted mirror in Once Upon a Time. Right. He does way much more than that as well, but he's such a phenomenal
he's
actor.
On right now he's on The Mandalorian as Moff Gideon, and he's an incredible villain on that. So if you're not watching The Mandalorian, you should be. If only for Giancarlo Esposito. And I'm looking at you, Nick. You should be.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll go in my corner of shame.
You better. watching, doing the eye thing here, watching you. All right.
Yeah.
So the boys, meanwhile, are watching all of this play out on television. Edgar is more than happy to, in trying to address the death of Kenji, the super terrorist. Essentially, that he chalks it up to like all of this was part of this big conspiracy of scientists led by who else? Madeline Stillwell, who's dead and can't defend herself.
Exactly. She can't speak for herself.
So
exactly.
essentially, Stan Edgar making Madeline Stillwell the patsy here to make everything just go neatly away, and they can get back to worrying about their profits and their own agendas and whatnot. Yeah. And the boys, meanwhile, they're back at their safe house at this point, still haven't showered from being inside a whale, which I have to think, seriously, you didn't have time to take a shower at this point? But no, they're right in front of the television, all covered in whale guts still that are now dried onto them by this point. And they're just watching how this is playing out. Edgar's thanking Stormfront for stopping Kenji. And meanwhile, Kimiko is just glaring at the television, especially when Stormfront comes into view on the camera, because it's like right there. You almost expected, like in Kill Bill, where the Ironside theme starts playing with the red lights flashing, going, reader, 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 reader. Yes. And you know that it's on between these two.
Very well said. Yeah, that's exactly what was going through my mind. It's like, it's on.
Yeah. So that's I could totally picture that Ironside theme music being played at that moment. I thought it would be great. But yeah, just she's just I think it's all she could do just to keep from leaping at the television at this point. And at the woman who killed her brother. So right in front of her. So that's pretty much our episode. Was there anything we didn't talk about that you thought we should discuss?
Well, the only other thing is that Homelander seems to have found out somewhat about Maeve and her girlfriend, which is something else that because she was on the phone with her girlfriend. Maeve was, and Homelander happens to come by and is like, who is this person?
Elena.
So who is Elena? Who is this Elena exactly? And so that is once again another seed that is planted in that flowering garden, or not so flowering garden, between Maeve and Homelander. So I'd say also keep your eyes peeled on that one too.
Yep, keep watching. We'll be talking about it. Don't worry, we'll get there. All right. Favorite quotes? Do you have any favorite quotes at this time?
This time around, not so much, because I think it was a lot of. It was the silent moments that kind of really got to me, and aside, of course, from the action that we got. So I didn't really have any particular quotes. What about you, Charles? Did you have any? I'm sure you did.
I'll just give I have a few, but I'll just give a couple here. Frenchie, after discovering that their boat was stolen, he tells Monsieur Charcutier that he tells Butcher, I thought you said this boat belongs to a friend. And Butcher replies, well, a stranger is just a friend you ain't met yet. Impure Butcher. Let's see, Grace Mallory talking to Butcher, where she says, if I think there's a way to screw this up, you'll find it. And let's see, Homelander talking to Stan Edgar, where he says, you see, companies, they come and go, but talent is forever. Which gives you a little
insight. I
might
have to agree on Homelander with that one. In other context, I might actually agree with him on that one.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. And a lot of talent out there don't realize how much power they wield as a result.
Very well said. Yeah, for sure.
So they kind of get taken advantage of by the man as a result, or in this case, the Edgar. What's your
Yeah.
rating? What's your rating for this one?
I'm going to give this 8.5 exploding whales.
Yeah, this was I really liked this episode. I thought it was a very
Mm,
well-rounded episode. I thought there was a lot going on, some
yeah.
game-changing moments. So I'm giving this one a solid 9 out of 10. Dawn of the Seven storyboards.
Nice.
I was going to do Whales Disemboweled by Speedboat, but you kind of took that one, so I went with Dawn. I had a
But you know
backup.
what? Your backup was actually better, Charles. I mean, because
Yeah.
in your comic book, you being a huge fan of comics, like
Yes.
myself, I really love that reference. So love it.
Yeah, because as the writer's trying to, he's doing a presentation for the pitch for the movie that they're going to do, and he's got some storyboards behind him, and so that's what I went with. All right, Fandom Zone news. Just got a couple of things to talk about this week. For those who don't know, who haven't heard yet, the CW started announcing at long last some premiere dates for their Arrowverse shows.
Ooh, nice.
At least some of them. So just to run these down. So Batwoman returns for season 2 on January 17th, 2021.
Yay.
Followed by Black Lightning, one of my favorite shows, back on for
Me too.
season 4. That premieres on February 8th, 2021. And then The Flash, season 7, and Superman and Lois premiere
Ooh,
on February 23rd, 2021. And they'll be back to back. So that's great.
fantastic. So mark your calendars, kids.
Exactly. So finally, at long last, here just like starting in about 3 months from now, we'll finally get some Arrowverse shows back on the CW at long last.
And new TV to watch.
New
It's
TV
been
to
a
watch.
while.
Well, we watched The Boys, and
Sure.
and Lori and I are watching the show called The Mandalorian, which I just mentioned that Nick should really watch. It's really good. So anyway, so we got some shows to watch. So stay tuned, kids. We're finally getting some TV shows. And of course, we have WandaVision coming up, right? Hopefully, we're going to get that in December. Fingers crossed.
2020 has been such a strange year, Charles, that I basically have zero certainties when it comes to entertainment these days.
Well, yeah, exactly. As you see movies like Black Widow getting postponed for the 4th or 5th time. So yeah, it's your hesitance in this regard is certainly understandable, sir. All right, so on some brighter news, we also have some news from Neil Gaiman regarding the Sandman TV series.
Yay.
It's just a little bit of news. Apparently, Gaiman recently teased the actress that they've chosen to play Death.
Ooh.
Dream's, Morpheus's older sister.
Sister, yeah.
Yep, and they haven't named the actress, but Gaiman was quoted as saying, quote, "I feel incredibly lucky and privileged that we got her," whoever she is, right? The key to me with Death is that more than any of the other characters in Sandman, they have to be filled with love and sensibleness. That sensibleness and love is manifest in this actress. I don't think anybody is going to have any complaints. So start your speculating, kids.
Yeah, the cogs already starting to move.
It's who is going to fit that category that looks like Death, and so we'll see.
Yeah.
So it's very curious.
Interesting. And on that note, Charles, I actually would love to, giving these folks a free plug here.
Yeah.
Definitely check out the great the audio play of Sandman, because it is fantastic. There's some incredible talent on there too, folks. So definitely check that out too, if you're fans of audio plays and yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's not going to be Kat Dennings who voiced Death on the Sandman Audible. But
though she does do a splendid job, though.
I have not yet listened to that yet because I'm waiting, because DC is going to be releasing this week, in fact, the Sandman Deluxe Edition, the first volume of that.
Ah, so you're holding it, you're waiting.
I've been waiting for a deluxe edition hardcover. I mean, I've got the single issue comics, I've got the trade paperbacks, but I've been really wanting a really nice hardcover collection. And so this is going to be the first 2 trade paperbacks in a single hardcover volume. And so what I'm going to do is, now that when I get that hardcover, I'm going to kind of kick back in my recliner chair down here in the basement of solitude, and I'm going to play the audio as I read the Sandman, and it'll just have that nice little audio accompaniment as I go through the pages, and it's going to be a nice little Sandman geek fest as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, well, what I can tell you is having this tweet, I mean, the voice talents on there. I mean, you have some A-list actors on there, so folks, definitely check it out.
Yeah, I went and go ahead and sprung for the CD version of that, so I'm really looking forward to this. It's something I've been saving for myself, kind of like here's for a surviving 2020 treat for myself.
If you enjoyed Neverwhere, you will love that one.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, Fandom Zone fan mail really quickly. We got a couple of short emails, once again, from Dave Proctor writing in.
Yay, thank you, Dave.
So love to hear from Dave writing in. It's great that he's being a part of this as we go through the boys on Phantom Zone. So he wrote in really quickly about episode 2, last week's episode that we discussed. Mm-hmm. Proper preparation and planning, for anyone wondering. So Dave wrote in about that one. He said, another short one this week. Little drama going on at the Proctor house. Uh-oh.
Oh, no, I hope nothing serious.
Yeah, hopefully everything's okay. I appreciate your podcast, and it is certainly a good diversion. Well, that's what we're here for. We're here to entertain and be a diversion from all your troubles and worries. This whole season has been very good on the boys. I think I want to read the comics one day. They must be awesome.
Yay.
Yep, so nothing wrong with that. Read those comics. They're great. But just be prepared. They're pretty, if you thought the whale thing was a bit much, just be warned. I'm going to try and get in sync with you two guys and rewatch Season 2, Episode 3, and be with you for next week in spirit. Keep up the good work. Entertaining as always. Stay well and wear a mask. Thanks, David K. Proctor. So, thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much, Dave.
So Dave was good to his word. He wrote in about Episode 3, Over the Hill with the Swords of 1,000 Men. So he wrote back and said, hi, fellas. Hi, Dave.
Hey, man.
Homelander proves himself to be a real waste of material, I guess he says. How could he be certain that his son wouldn't be hurt when he fell from the house?
Exactly.
Well, he couldn't be, but it's Homelander. He's a jerk. So that boy was the first soup that was born super. What a praise, Dad. Butcher demonstrates that he is completely self-centered, but later has a bit of a turnaround when he steps in to avoid Hughie being killed.
I suppose so, yeah. He does have that, yeah.
He has his moments, but not enough. Not enough. The crash into the whale is so, I guess he means disgusting, because he had discussing here, so I'm guessing he meant disgusting, and disturbing, and it was Hughie's breaking point. Mother's milk to the rescue. MM definitely stepped up there. A good friend to reach out like that. We need more of that in this world. Well said, Dave.
Amen, brother, for sure.
So testify. Starlight put to the test by Homelander. Yes, she was. I was curious to see how that was going to go down before Butcher and the rest stepped in.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
We don't know. It could have gone either way. Stormfront proves to be as messed up as Homelander. Yeah, pretty much.
You have no idea.
Yeah. Just wait. When they said this was based on a graphic novel, I wasn't aware that they used two meanings of, quote, graphic, unquote.
Nice one.
This is a very graphic novel, so just be warned.
You'd have the parental advisory stickers all over the book, I think.
Exactly. So suggested for mature readers. I'm really enjoying the podcast and look forward to next week. Thanks for all the hard work and thorough entertainment. Stay well. Thank you, David K. Proctor. So thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the 2 emails this time. That was great. You're all caught up now.
The man rocks, and I'm glad he finds us entertaining. It means we're doing our jobs, Charles.
Yep. So hopefully everybody else out there as well thinks that we're entertaining. So we'd love to hear from you. Hope you're enjoying our boys reviews. So write to us just like Dave did at Phantom Zone Fan Mail at the phantomzonecast@gmail.com. That's phantomzonecast@gmail.com. Or you can reach us on Facebook, the Phantom Zone Podcast, or on Twitter at Phantom Zone Cast. Or, hey, Instagram, the Instagram, at Phantom Zone Podcast. We'd love it if you'd like to follow us there. Please tell your friends about us because, hey, obviously we're here. We'd love to keep building the audience, get more people into the boys and what we're talking about. So if you enjoy what we do, let your friends know and send them our way. We'd be more than happy to take care of them. just like we take care of you guys. And how about you, Nick? Where can they reach you?
Well, folks, if country music is your speed, I do also host the Whiskey and Cigarettes show where we play traditional country, today's country, and everything else in between. If you want to find out how and where to tune in, you can visit our website. That's whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. Also, podcast-wise, I do host Happiness and Darkness, a superhero movie podcast where we discuss superheroes from Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, and more. We recently celebrated our 60th episode where we had a blast discussing Black Panther. And if any of you folks would like to discuss them, yes, it was great fun. I can't believe it's already been 60 episodes, Charles. It's like, wow. But anyways, if any of you folks wanna discuss a superhero movie with me, feel free to send me an email, happinessanddarknesshow@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, we have a gold standard, the Oscars podcast, where with Rachel Friend and Zan Sprouse, we're going through all the movies that won the Oscar from Best Picture from 1927's Wings to the present day. If you'd like to discuss an Oscar-winning movie with us, you can hit us up at goldstandardoscars@gmail.com. That's goldstandardoscars@gmail.com. And what about you, Charles?
Well, Nick, since you were kind enough to set me up so nicely. As for me, at Charles Skaggs on the Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. We're going to talk about all the stuff we talk about here on the Fandom Zone podcast. So, hey, The Boys or Stargirl or Watchmen, all kinds of comic books, sci-fi news of my other podcasts for the Southgate Media Group, including, hey, Titan Talk, the Titans podcast that I recently did with a certain DJ Nick, maybe you've heard of him, where we've talked about Doom Patrol Season 2. And oh, by the way, Doom Patrol Season 2 coming out on the Blu-rays very soon.
Nice.
So if you're a physical media guy like I am, you'd be more than happy about that. And, obviously we're waiting for more news of Titans Season 3 and hopefully Doom Patrol Season 3. So we're kind of in hiatus on that one, but I hope you guys, if you haven't listened to us, please check us out. Nick and I thought we had a really good time talking Doom Patrol Season 2.
It was great fun.
And can't wait to talk more. So I hope you can check that out. Also, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where Nick and certain other special guest companions join Jesse Jackson and I as we talk, hey, Doctor Who from the classic and the modern era, Torchwood, the Sarah Jane Adventures, and Big Finish, and more. And then, of course, Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast, where a certain Zan Sprouse, who Nick just happened to mention not too long ago, and I talk, of course, all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch, and coming up here in about 3 days from now as we record this, we're going to be discussing the 1980 David Lynch film, The Elephant Man, as we do like 2 episodes as we discuss the new Criterion Collection release on Blu-ray. So the first episode that we're going to do this week, we're going to be talking the movie, and then in 2 weeks we're going to talk the special features. So we'll run down all those, do a little deeper dive into the disc, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And obviously it's a pretty important David Lynch film. It's kind of one that kind of brought him into more mainstream acceptance after his first film, Eraserhead. So you got some great acting talent. The late Sir John Hurt, better known, of course, as the War Doctor on Doctor Who in 1984 and other great films. And then Sir John Gielgud, Sir Anthony Hopkins.
And was there also a nominee for Best Picture as well?
Yes, it was. And,
it was nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, and I believe Lynch got a Best Director nod, if I'm not mistaken, for that one.
Yes, he did. He did, yep. And in fact, yeah, among the nominees of that particular year was The Elephant Man. No surprise.
Yep, so we'll talk more about that when we talk The Elephant Man this coming week. So I hope you guys come and check that out because I think it'd be a lot of fun. And hey, of course, Zan is more than interesting when it comes to film discussion, as Nick has certainly proven on his podcast. So if you enjoy her there, I think you'll enjoy her on Ghostwood. So I hope everybody checks that out. All right. Nick, do you have any final thoughts before we sign off?
Well, as always, Charles, it is a joy and a blessing to be able to discuss The Boys with you. I always have a wonderful time. I hope our listeners enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And, I guess it's going to be a very interesting time for the world going ahead. On the day that we're recording this is actually Election Day Eve in the US. So it's going to be, when this episode comes out, we might actually know who the winner is of that debate, of that election. So it's going to be interesting.
And then we'll see what happens. So, yeah, no big deal. Only like the future of American democracy on the line. No, nothing to worry about, right?
Just everyday stuff.
So we'll see what happens. See if America still exists here next time. But in the meantime, I do want to just very quickly mention that how much I'm really enjoying talking with you, Nick. I really enjoyed discussing the boys with you, and as I enjoyed talking Doom Patrol with you. So I hope that comes out to everybody. I hope that's evident, because I think it's, I just have a lot of fun talking with you, and I certainly hope you feel the same.
Well, it's very much so, folks. Actually, I'm here on sufferance. I'm just telling you this.
So you're saying you're suffering? No, just okay.
I'll be joking aside. It's always great fun, and thank you again for the opportunity, Charles. Always appreciate it. Looking forward to next week.
Well, anything I do to take more of your time, I'm more than happy to do. All right. So everybody, please come back. Episode 194 next time as we discuss Nothing Like It in the World, the 4th episode of The Boys Season 2. It's going to be a lot of fun. I got to find out what happens after these big events in this episode. So we'll see what the fallout is, as Nick and I will come back and we'll discuss more of The Boys right here on the Fandom Zone podcast. Bye, everybody.
Ciao.